Hello, I'm Dr. Sangeeta Pechia, and today we are going to embark on a beautiful journey to visit the ancient monument built during the Mauryan period, that is Sanchi. So, what shall we explore? Why were the stupas constructed? Who constructed the Sanchi stupa? What stories are generally associated with its construction? What history of social, cultural, and political life can we construct from these tombs? What impression on architecture do we gather from the archaeological remains? And what messages of Ashoka do we see on the edicts? And how are they relevant in today's context? Sanchi is located at a distance of almost 50 kilometers from Bhopal in the Vidisha district. The Sanchi stupas were constructed by Ashoka. Ashoka constructed almost thousands of stupas, but only a few have survived. These stupas were later on expanded by other dynasties. One such stupa is at Sanchi, which was all shattered and in ruins, but was restored by the efforts of one person, Sir John Edwards, reconstructed by Sir John Marshall. This is the house where Sir John Marshall stayed, and this has now been converted into a museum. This is how we see now the beautiful Sanchi stupa with its front entrance. Let us peep into the history of Sanchi. The stupas were originally built in the 3rd century BCE by the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka. It is thought that the remains of Buddha, that is, the ashes of Buddha, are housed in this monument. The simple structure was damaged sometime in the 2nd century BCE, but was later not only repaired but also enlarged during the 1st century BCE. It is 120 feet wide and 54 feet high. Now here we can see the stupas. Now as you can see, the central structure consists of a hemispherical dome, or the anda as it is called, on a base with a relic chamber deep within. Now what does this dome symbolize? Among other things, it is said that the dome depicts or symbolizes the heaven enclosing the earth. Then you can see what is called the Harmika. This Harmika is a square railing, and it is said that it represents the world mountain. The central pillar, as you can see, the Yashti, symbolizes the cosmic axis and supports a triple umbrella structure, the Chhatra. On the top you can see the Chhatra. This Chhatra, as you can see, there are 3 rings on this Chhatra, represents the 3 jewels of Buddhism. Like the song goes, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, Sangham Sharanam Gacchami, Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami. So the 3 jewels here are the Buddha, the Dharma, that is the doctrine, and the Sangh, that is the community. Then you can see a circular terrace. This circular terrace is called the Medi. It is enclosed by a railing and it surrounds the dome. This Medi was constructed for the believers or followers of Lord Buddha to take a circumambulation in a clockwise direction. The entire structure is enclosed by a low wall, that is the Vedika. This has 4 cardinal points, which are the ceremonial gateways or the torans. The torans of the great stupa are the crowning achievement of the Sanchi. Each gateway is made up of 2 square posts topped by capitals of sculptured animals or dwarfs, surmounted by 3 architraves. All the elements are covered with relief sculpture depicting the events of Buddha's life. Jatak stories, that is, the stories about Buddha's previous lives, scenes of early Buddhism, and auspicious symbols. The names of the donors are also inscribed Now, this is one piece of sculpture which is kept in the museum at Sanchi. What does this sculpture reveal, or what does this sculpture seem to you? Is it a lion? But this lion seemed to have two sets of back and just one single head or face. And why was this sculpture required? This type of sculpture was kept on the corners of the walls. As you can see, if you look at the side view of this sculpture, this is something that we see. That is the same face, but we can see just one lion with its two hands. And if you see from the other angle, this is what is of the lion that we see. The head with again the other two limbs of the front and at the back. Now this is one edict that we find at Sanchi, which is written in Brahmi script. In this edict, Ashoka is warning that whosoever tries to bring a schism or division within the religion, Buddhist religion, shall be punished. This was a period when Buddhism had already got divided into the Mahayana and the Hinayan, and there were further differences regarding principles, regarding ways of worship, and therefore Buddhism was becoming weak. And that is why this edict or this declaration was issued by Ashoka in the form of an edict. Now this you can see is the lion capital, but the one that you can see here is not the one which has been adopted by the Indian government as our national emblem. This is the capital which was there at Sanchi, and a capital was located or was kept on the top of a pillar, and as you can see it is very beautiful. You can see a mirror being put behind, and you can see the mirror image also, and there are four lions back to back, but when you look at it from any one angle you can only see three lions at a time. You can see the intricate carving, and if you take a deeper and a closer look at this structure, you will be really amazed and happy to see the artful and skillful sculpture of that period. You can see the beautiful hair also on the lion's neck being carved out. Now this is another piece of architectural beauty that we find at Sanchi. It has been carved out on one of the torrents, that is the gate, and here you can see the Jatak story. Now in this particular sculpture we can see the story of the Monkey King. If you can see on the top, there is a monkey who has stretched itself over a tree, and the other side of his body resting on a mountain, and below you can see a river flowing and lot of mango trees. In the river you can also see fishes and other aquatic life being carved out. You can see a lot of small army that was or people or soldiers who are standing here. Now what is this beautiful story of the Lion King? There was a monkey king who was living in a forest which was close to the mango trees were close to a river, and so he had told all the monkeys of his community, all his subjects, that they should take care that not even a single mango should drop into the river. But one day accidentally one mango fell into the river, and it, with the river current, it flew down, and there was a farmer who was drawing some water from the river, and it fell into his hand. And when the farmer picked up the mango and saw it, he was really thrilled to see such a ripe and very tantalizing mango. So before eating it, he thought that, is he the right person to eat this mango? He thought that such a fine piece of mango is only deserved by the landlord of that particular village. So he took that mango to the landlord of that village, and the landlord also thought that it was only befitting for a minister to eat such a nice, ripe, yellow mango whose aroma was absolutely amazing. So he took that mango to the minister, and the minister also thought that it was not befitting for him and was befitting only for the king to eat such a nice mango. So the minister gave that mango to the king, and when the king ate that mango, he was really amazed and he wanted more and more of it. So he asked his minister to find out where did this mango come from. And when the ministers found out that the farmer had in fact picked it up from the river, they marched into the forest, scaling through the forest up the river, and found those mango trees and the mango garden, mango groves where such lovely mangoes grew. Looking at the king's army marching, the monkey king now realized that it was not safe for his people to stay there, and so he moved his population or his people out of those areas or settlements. And since they had to cross this river, he himself became a bridge in order to enable his people to march out of that area. But there was one monkey who was very mischievous and cunning, and when he was the last monkey, he was and crossing the river. And when he was crossing the river, he stepped in onto the feet of the monkey, and thus the monkey king fell into the river and died. Now, why was this Jatak story of the monkey king constructed or imagined? The Monkey King is symbolic of all the pains and sacrifices and hardships that the monkey took upon himself to protect his population or his subjects. And therefore, through this Jatak story, maybe the duties and responsibilities of the king were to be highlighted. Probably, since this is a Jatak story and Buddha's previous births have been tried to portray, maybe it also represents the life of Buddha, who undertook upon himself all the miseries to show path and direction and enlightenment to the people of the world. Now, these are the beautiful torans. As you can see, they are all in circular and anti-circular direction. Here you can see beautiful structures that were added later on when the Himyan and Mahayana Buddhism started, and Buddha started being worshipped in the form of idol. Now this is one toran that you can see here. Buddha is depicted in the form of symbols, and since image worship had not started by then, and therefore this stupa has been depicted, it is said that Ashoka had come himself in order to inaugurate or dedicate this stupa when it was constructed. And you can see some Brahmi script also engraved on this, and lot of people who have gathered. Elephants who were symbolic of royalty are also being seen, and we can see how intricately this has been carved. Now here you can see one Shal Bhanjika. What was this Shal Bhanjika? Shal Bhanjika is the sculpture which depicts women generally standing near a tree or embracing the branches of the tree or the leaves of the tree. Some may be connected to the close proximity that humans lived with the nature and the interdependence. It can also be a symbol of sustained development as to how to take care and preserve the nature which provides for our sustenance. Here you can also see a beautiful elephant carved out, its beautiful trunk, and also the embellishments that were there on its forehead. You can see the Mahabharata. You can also see a piece of cloth that has been put on the elephant, the carvings, and the other elephant coming very close to behind him. And if you start appreciating how difficult and how laborious it must have been to carve out such splendid pieces of sculptures. If you look at this women, you can also have a peep into the kind of jewelry that was being used at that time. Look at her hands. They are massively adorned with the bangles that she is wearing in both the hands. You can look at her feet, beautifully adorned with similar kind of bangles on the feet right up to her knees. So it could also be depicting a very rich class woman, because you can see also her waist, which is beautifully decorated with a lot of beautiful ornaments. Look at the beauty of the entire structure. You can actually feel that she is holding a branch of the tree, and she is hugging a branch or holding on a, from her right hand she is holding a branch of the tree, and the left she is holding another branch of the same tree. And if we look at this piece, we can also see other small details which have been beautifully carved out here. Again, like we were talking, that on the torrents, Buddha has been, it was worshipped in the form of images and not in the form of idol. Idol worship started quite late, when there was a schism or division in the Buddhism. And here you can see that this is a peepal tree under which Buddha got enlightenment, and he is being worshipped here. Again, you can see the details. It seems that the society was very rich. As you can see, lot of jewelry people are wearing here, and in the hair of in the ladies who are surrounding the monument. Now here you can again see beautiful panels. Elephant was symbolic of royalty, as we discussed earlier. You can see a lot of other animals also in this panel. On the right side, you can see it looks like ibex, and it is very huge in size, and it is also mounted by people. So it was not a goat, but larger than goat. And maybe at that time ibex were in large numbers, so they have been depicted here. You can also see camel here, very beautifully depicted. And again the Sanchi stupa or stupas at different places, so you can at least see three stupas here, and how people are worshipping them. And then you can also see lot of vertical panels here, which have been embellished by lotus and other flora and fauna. Then you can also see lot of intricate carving in all these panels, and there is a continuity in style, if you can see at the bottom, and in the corners of these beautiful panels. So imagine the number of days labor, and imagine the number of hard work, the amount of hard work that must have been put in, and think about the people who must have been employed. And it could also have been a way of giving employment to the people, because a lot of wars were also fought, and a lot of people were also enslaved at that time. So it is quite possible that these slaves were also being trained and put into this work of manufacturing or constructing buildings. But it is very important to understand that such kind of architecture is a very important evidence of the well-being of a particular state, because unless and until you have resources and the state is rich, it cannot divert its resources for putting up such massive monuments. So this also depicts how well off the Mauryan period economy must have been. Now, moving on to the next, again, this is depicted in one of the panels, and very beautiful chariots, women, men together, daily life, leisure, activities, and look at the intricate carving. And it shows also how people dressed at that particular time, the kind of hairstyles they made, and what was the means of transport. So, the next here, the depiction is again people praying to the symbols of Buddha. You can see ladies here, men here, so all together bowing to on a pedestal. There is a people tree that you can see. The same kind of depiction is repeated in the second section, and you can also see angels with wings here worshipping from the heavens. So probably the divine depiction of how Buddha had become a god image for people at that particular time. So this is what we had today to share with you regarding how Sanchi Stupa looks like, and it is a really very exciting and fascinating place to visit. But we have to be very careful, and we have to be very sure about what is it that we want to see in the structure, what is it that we want to ask from the structure, and the monument will talk to us back with the questions that we have in mind. So whenever you visit this place, you go in for detailing, go in for exploring some new things for yourself, and try to find out these images and these sculptures that I have just shared with you. And Sanchi will never be the same to visit for you again as it must have been previously. So, thank you so much.